It is time for something completely new, something that I've been wanting to do for a little while. Of course, I've been casting games of professional matches all the time already, but one of the things I wanted to add to the channel for a while as well is to add fewer games and cast those in a professional setting. So, what I got for you today is a Zerg versus Protoss between the Silver Zerg player right here, spawning in the top left corner of Whirlwind Alley. He's gonna be spawning in red. He is known as Stang. Stang? Stangy, I'm not entirely sure. And his opponent, spawning all the way in the bottom right corner, the player that actually submitted this replay to me, the gold level Protoss known as Mr. Happy. And today he is going to be playing with the blue Protoss pieces. Apparently he's gonna go for a really quick wall off actually, and immediately throwing up those double gateways here in the front. Probably will get himself a cyber core shortly after to really get that warp gate upgrade. But regardless, if you have like a... Oh, hold on. He's gonna be adding on a third gate here as well, alright. So, regardless, in case you have like an absolutely wild game that you want me to go... There's a fourth gateway. Mr. Happy, what have you got in mind here for us? Anyway, if you have like a crazy match that you want to go ahead and have me cast as well, you can now submit your replays to replays@lowko.tv. That is replays@lowko.tv. Please include in the subject of the email what the game is about. Please don't include the winner or whatever. Like, I don't want to know that. I mean, I still have to cast the games. I don't want to be, I don't want to be judging what's going to happen before anything even happens. But if you've got an absolutely wild game, and please, like, only like send me the craziest ones, because this one today was sent right here by Mr. Happy, and I mean, I'm not gonna tell you the title of it just yet because it may give away a bit of the game, but it definitely is a little bit crazy. Anyway, so Mr. Happy right here, the gold level Protoss, he's opening up with 4 gateways and a supply block. He's opening up with 4 gateways at the front as well as a supply block, because right now he cannot produce out of this anymore. However, he is going to continue that pylon production for just a little while. In the meantime, on the other end of the map, Stang, or Stangy, I'm going to call him Stang for the remainder of this game, is going to start off with a very quick Roach Warren. Of course, this is actually a pretty legitimate build. He's gonna start up here the metabolic boost upgrade, which is the Zergling speed. Definitely not unheard of either. And of course, if you go for this kind of style, right, with the super quick double gases, you could actually get a bunch of Ravagers out really early on into the game. And while this is like the biggest map in the, actually in the previous map pool, I guess this was this must have been played like a week or so ago. Regardless, he's gonna have to walk across the map with the Ravagers if that's what he's going for. But for the moment, it looks like we are good to go. Now, of course, by the way, this is not gonna be a super high level match. If you have some good comments, definitely leave them down below. But if you're gonna go ahead and make fun of people, I mean, don't do that, guys. These are definitely not the best of the best players in the world, but we're just simply here to enjoy some good old StarCraft on some of the lower levels on the ladder. And I'll be honest with you, I don't usually watch these kind of games, so I hope we're in for a treat. Now, these 4 gateways here at the front are not really doing a whole lot. Eventually, though, we do see that Nexus going up here as well. So Mr. Happy is just using these gateways here at the front as sort of like a hold position. Apparently, there's a probe here at... There's a probe right here at the front, hold position microing as well, while there are 2 perfectly fine zealots right next to it to potentially prevent Zerglings from heading into the main as well. I love the little scoot forward there, though. I wonder what this probe out in the open here is gonna go ahead and do, and what he's got in store for us today. Eventually, he's gonna go ahead and end up at least moving that one across the map. One thing to note here as well is that apparently Mr. Happy has not quite started his cybernetics core upgrades just yet. There is no warp gate research, which makes me a little bit scared. While there are a couple of stalkers out, he's not gonna have a whole lot of production. Now, what I would like to think, right, is that the reason why Mr. Happy is building these 4 gateways here in the front is because, like, in a game before this one, he got, like, overrun by a bunch of Zerglings, which is why he's, like, hold position microing that probe there, making sure that nothing can go through, even though there's a perfectly fine zealot right next to it. And he decided to just go straight for the wall off. He just decided that that is what he wanted to set up here in this match first and foremost. Now, of course, on the other end of the map, Stang is definitely not, playing unorthodox either. He's actually got a reasonable amount of workers. I mean, he's been making workers and units at the same time. Generally speaking, not something I would advise you to do if you're really looking to improve, like making both workers as well as units during the same, like, larva cycle, I suppose. Usually it's not a good idea, but he's been doing a really good job at, like, keeping his energy really low. He's been injecting beautifully, and he's actually going for, like, a pretty standard unit composition here as well. well. He's got a solid, like, look at this. This is actually really cool. Stang right here, even though he's a silver level player, right? He's got himself the full saturation on 2 bases. Sure, he made some units here to be safe, but he's gonna go ahead and get up to a lair. I'm hoping he's gonna get his Glio Reconstitution, the road speed upgrade, and then also the +1 missile upgrade. He's actually definitely on the right track when it comes to macro in this game, and it's really, really cool to see. In the meantime, Mr. Happy not done just yet. Apparently, he's got himself a Twilight Council. He's also realized at this point that he does not quite have Warp Gauge yet, so he decided to start researching that too. And he's getting himself a charge upgrade as well as a starport. And then on the other end of the map, he's proxied a robotics facility. So basically, Mr. Happy getting every little bit of tech that you can find. I really wonder what he's got in store for us though when it comes to, like, you know, the sheer amount of zealots right here at the front. Oh my god, look at that. That is really becoming a force. But he's got, like, literally every single... he's still not... Like, this is 6 minutes into the game, it's still not warp gate. He's got, like, every single bit of tech here under the sun, but he doesn't have enough gas to support any of it. So I wonder what he's got in mind. He's even gonna go up to the Dark Shrine now, and he's getting himself an observer, and I'm probably expecting a warp gate or a warp prism out of this very, very shortly after. Cool to see. In the meantime, though, Stang, did you get the... No, you didn't get +1 attack. You didn't get road speed either. I'm a little disappointed in that. But he did get himself the Spire. Triple gas going up now, too. And neither player, like, I mean, neither is really floating a whole lot, right? Stang, sure, is saving up some resources here. But that is on purpose, because he's planning to get a bunch of mutas out here as soon as he possibly can. He's got the Overlords already coming in. And I think he's gonna go ahead and, well, he's making a bunch of roaches here. I was gonna say, maybe he's gonna try and get about, you know, 10 or so mutas out ASAP. But it looks like, well, he's got one on the way. He's got one on the way. Saved up a lot of gas, but he's got one on the way right now. Dark Shrine, though, is about to be finished here. It's, you know, it's about 3/4 of the way done, and there's really no detection out here for Stang just yet. Now, this is one of the things, okay? Like, sometimes people ask me, it's like, hey, Lowko, what do you think lower league players should do more of? And one of the things that I would really like to point out is that you need to try and get some sort of plan here in mind. Because I've got the feeling that both players are just sort of trying to make some stuff instead of like a certain plan, right? So Mr. Happy is opening up with Heavy Zealot, lots of gateways here at the front. He's getting the charge upgrade, but then he's also got a starport, and he's got a Dark Shrine, and he's got himself a robotics facility proxied. And while he does have an observer in the main, it's a bit of a lack of a plan, right? Same actually goes right here for Mr. Stang. Sure, he's got himself a lot of roaches, he's got himself a lot of economy, but he's also not really doing a whole lot. So if you're unsure, here's what you do, okay? You focus on like 1 or 2 units, and then you push across the map with those 1 or 2 types of units as soon as you can get a couple of upgrades on them. So say, for example, road speed and +1 attack, or say, for example, Zealot charge and warp gates. Something like that. If you mine those, or if you make those at the same time and you then move across the map, usually you're gonna get the most benefit out of your upgrades. But regardless, Mr. Happy has indeed seen with the observer in the main that these mutas are out on the map, and he has started up a gazillion cannons. All of these cannons not quite gonna be zealots anymore. Of course, he does need to photon overcharge. Let's see if he can get that one in. Ooh, the probe though at the front. The probe at the front. He's like, guys, fellas, come to, fellas, I want to get... They're all trying to make their way into the main, but it's not quite happening just yet. There are warp gates now, however. They're still desperately trying to get into the main base, but the phoenixes are out, and there we do eventually see the photon overcharges go down. But in total, Stang ended up killing 11 workers. And as far as the supply counts go, even though he's a silver player and his opponent is gold, he is nearly, or he's actually more so than doubling his opponent's supply. Now, I am a little worried here. The bases are starting to run desperately low on resources already, and I really wonder what he's got in mind for us very shortly, because he will need another expansion at either of the 3rd base locations very shortly after. Now, of course, Mr. Happy, not letting those mutas come back into the base again, has decided that he's gonna put down as many of those cannons as he can possibly afford. He's got a ton of them out right now, and it looks like he may actually be going for a push across the map. While he did proxy the robotics facility as well as the Dark Shrine, he's not gonna go ahead and use it, but look at all these units. Stang, not having road speed, doesn't really care either, because he finds finds a handful of zealots that were made really early on into the game, charging at all of his roaches, and there we do indeed see the backup once again after realizing that 2 stalkers came for the rescue. And while the observer is still up in the skies trying to keep tabs of all of these Zerg units, I don't think Mr. Happy here is too happy, disregarding his nickname, of course. That was actually not a pun that was intended, but I don't think he's all too happy about the amount of units that he sees. Now, eventually, Stang does indeed get himself a 3rd base up here as well, and he's gonna make sure that he will be mining from that as soon as the main base starts running low, because it's already getting very skinny. These mineral fields already at a very low amount, and actually, he's separating the mutas right here too, which definitely could potentially set up a reasonable and pretty powerful thing too. Now, he's got the War Prism coming in, Mr. Happy that is, so he does still have a plan, because if he could potentially, say for example, warp in some Dark Templar into his opponent's main base, that could deal a ton of damage. In the meantime though, the Mutalisk have indeed found the cannon, and they have managed to connect with a few of the probes and do get, I think, about an additional 5 or so kills there, which is gonna be good. And while he is getting a lot of Hydras now as well, I'm starting to think here that, you know, Mr. Stang could just go ahead and move across the map and go kill him. That is one of the benefits when you're attacking a little bit more often and you're figuring out exactly what it is you're going for. I mean, if you got a timing attack in mind with, for example, +1 attack and, you know, +2 attack and you know, any of these upgrades, and you move across the map, you can keep tabs of how far ahead and how the stance of the game is. Right now, it's a bit of an awkward position because neither player really knows exactly what's going on. Now, the Dark Templar are making their way across the map. They don't know about this 3rd base just yet, but it looks like they're gonna be returning here for the time being, and with no observers or no overseers rather up in the skies, I'm starting to be a little bit worried here for the Zerg army, because those Dark Templar can do a stupid amount of damage. They're all picking up so many kills, and eventually indeed Stang does realize it, but not before losing a significant amount of supply. Now, of course, these are roaches that we're talking about. They are reasonably easy to replace, and actually, ooh, I was gonna say, we do see a couple of Dropper Lords morphing in, but no, we need Overseers. There indeed, we do see a couple of Overseers in production as well. Very nicely done. And the War Prism is indeed gonna try and make its way across the map, while the Dark Templar are heading to the 4th base that doesn't quite exist yet. Of course, the War Prism, though, we'll be able to get into the main very shortly here, which could potentially do a lot of damage. And actually, Mr. Happy will be able to set himself up an expansion, setting up a crisscross of pylons, making sure that it looks extra pretty. Of course, you can potentially, like, rally point hearts as well. It looks beautiful. But no such things being written on the minimap just yet. Of course, the Dark Templar will be able to head into the main. And actually, we've got some double-pronged aggression here. Mr. Happy going for both the aggression here in the main, at least as soon as he decides to warp in, as well as a ton of drone kills here at the 3rd base location. Now, there are a couple of Overseers up in the air. Will this base go down? I highly doubt it. Woo-hoo-hoo! That base has 7 HP. That is a 7 HP hatchery, and at the same time, the Dark Templar were warped in the main, and one of them is gonna scout ahead. He's like, guys, it's safe, there's no detection. Another one is gonna go ahead and check out the natural and say the same, guys, there's no detection whatsoever, come on out here. And eventually, indeed, all of these DTs will be able to start taking out this army from the inside out. Now, sadly, no other warp in here to try and get rid of this hatchery. It will slowly but steadily regenerate life here, but it looks like the Zerg has got enough of this shenanigans. He's trying to move across the map with all of the mutas now. At least he's starting to make a bit of a shove for it, but the DTs in the main still dealing some of the damage as well. No roach speed upgrades. Doesn't look like there's any upgrades here for the Hydralisk either. And while eventually all of these units should be taken care of, there we go, this is still a little bit tricky. Because, I mean, sure, right? Mr. Happy right now at 35 supply, and generally speaking, he doesn't really have a whole lot of army anymore. It looks like Stang, actually I was gonna say, Stang may be too scared to move across the map because of the Dark Templar, but it looks like nope, he's just gonna try and see if he can deal some damage. Now that War Prism still out on the map, there is still an observer that is fully aware of the fact that all of those units are indeed moving across, but with just a couple of Dark Templar warping at home, he could definitely still defend. Now of course, the Overseer will be moving in here as well, but I'm starting to be worried here for Mr. Happy. I thought for a second Mr. Stang wouldn't be moving across the map here upon seeing the Dark Templar. And while there are actually some DTs being warped in here for defensive purposes as well, I wonder if this is indeed going to be in time. Because look at the amount of units that are already out here for the Zerg player. I mean, he's got a ton of stuff. He's nearly maxed out. It is 190 supply plus just now versus like 35 or something, which is absolutely insane. And I mean, Stang, while he definitely is gonna have some trouble moving up the ramp here in the natural expansion of Mr. Happy, as long as he's quick enough about it, there shouldn't be all too many issues right here. However, the Dark Templar once more have made their way across the map. They were warped in with that warp prism, and there's actually 4 of them right now. And this actually could become a bit of an awkward position, because as you may remember, actually, whoa, hold on. Stang is gonna try and return here with his entire force, just because there are 4 Dark Templar in his main base. Oh no, Stang, start fighting. Start fighting, my man. Roach speed upgrade, please. Hydra speed upgrade. They're so good. They make this game so much easier, and indeed, he is reinforcing this army here with more and more units at home, but the lair has fallen, and with actually no detection here across the map at all. I'm actually starting to be a little bit worried here for Stang. Here's the thing, Mr. Happy proxied all of these buildings in the bottom left corner of the map, and that's the thing, right? I mean, these are the last overseers. He's not sending any of them home, and these Dark Templars are having a field day here. There is still mining at the 3rd base location, though, but of course, this hatchery was already brought extremely low, and the DTs, one of them is slicing away at doing anything. I mean, these larvae are not important. And while the natural will be cleaned up, I mean, one of these overseers needs to go home. Stang! Stang, send one of these overseers home. We've got a bit of a base trade scenario going on now. Natural is under a lot of fire. Look at the amount of Dark Templar that Mr. Happy has. He's gonna try and just simply clean out all of these buildings. And the main base has been fully cleaned up. Natural only has 1 assimilator remaining. And while, this is not the final buildings, I mean, there's still these 3 buildings right here in the bottom left corner that Stang does not know about. There's actually so little supply here for the Protoss player, but the Zerg does not know about the additional buildings in the bottom left corner of the map. And with these Dark Templar heading into the 3rd base, this may very well end up being this is actually gonna be a victory right here. This is actually gonna be a victory right here for Mr. Happy. He's got like no supply. Kill the buildings! Kill the buildings, Mr. Happy! Don't worry about all these drones. Okay, there we go. He's gonna eventually be able to take this out, and I'm pretty sure, even though there's only a couple of units remaining here in the main base, I'm pretty sure that that's the last one. So these are the kind of games that I'm talking about, guys. If you have a wild one, if you've got a crazy match, submit it to replays at LowkoTV. I hope you enjoyed watching this one. That was an awesome one. I hope you enjoyed watching it. If you did, make sure you hit that like button down below. Leave me a comment and let me know what you think of these kind of matches. Because, of course, I mean, I would love to do more if you guys are enjoying them as well. Because these are really, really fun. And they're definitely a bit of a change of pace. Other than that, of course, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe. And as well, if you aren't already aware, you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Links are in the description. I want to thank you for watching. Have an amazing day. Do not forget to smile, alright? And I will see you in the next one.